Hello, divine, messy humans. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to be here. Apologies if I sound a little bit rough. I've just had a massive weekend deep diving from 9 a.m. till 6:30 p.m. into my shadow self, which, as you can imagine, was an interesting weekend. Learning lots. Perfect timing because today I have with me Sarah Tynan, who is a multi six-figure entrepreneur, a quantum frequency coach, a mastermind speaker, the creator of Quantum Coach Certification and the Quantum Business Academy. Sarah is devoted to her mission of helping souls tap into deeper layers of abundance, service, and freedom, and supports them in breaking old business paradigms to anchor in new earth business codes. All of the pieces that contributed to who she has become, but at the core level and above all, she's here to help humanity evolve. So a massive mission, my love. And thank you
Oh,
so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here, Amanda. We go way back. So this is like chatting to an old friend.
The perfect way. That's exactly what I want it to be. So thank you so much for giving us your time and obviously your experience. So tell us a little bit more about your bio. There are a lot of quantum words in there and evolution and all of the things that we like to talk about.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit more depth on it.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's all the things it's all the buzzy words, that people like I know it's being thrown around and, lots of people are saying them, but I find very few maybe understand. I'm going to throw that out there. That's okay. That's okay. That's what
Do you
we're
know? I'm just going to say it now. This is why I wanted you on because I am cheering so loudly right now because it's all the buzz and none of the do. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Rightio. Exactly. So yeah, this is it's a really cool time we're in. And I think, people are really having this we're all going through certain levels of awakenings, whether it's delving into the shadow aspects of ourselves, whether it's recognizing that, okay, we're not so powerless to all these things that are outside of us. And that we can actually really, go within and be in this place of being that deliberate creator. And so, when we talk about the quantum and energy and all of those things, in essence, it's actually who we are as energetic, deliberate creating beings. And for me, the quantum is where every reality exists. The quantum is where our potential lies. And the way we navigate the quantum is through our ability to use our imagination. And so if we truly understood who we are as creative beings, we would know that when we're thinking of something, when we're imagining, we're envisioning, it's not our mind making those things up. It is our mind navigating what we call the quantum, which are the endless, expansive, limitless realities that are available to us. So this is why I have the Quantum Business Academy, because if we don't understand that aspect of ourselves as, who we are, what's available, what potential lies there, and how we pull it all through, if we're just applying strategy and we don't understand who we are as energetic beings, we will be, or people are potentially already are working against the primal forces of the universe. We're going deep in straight away.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Dive deep.
Yeah. So in essence, understanding the quantum is understanding you as a deliberate creator.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
yeah, I mean, it's been my journey. And, when I first launched the Business Academy, it was I always say that 80%, truly, and it's not me saying this, it's me proclaiming this as an embodied knowing that 80% of what you experience in your business as whatever level of success, the money you make, etc., clients you call in, it is all the energetic embodiments first. And then, of course, we live on this 3D beautiful planet, so we have to have the action component. But I think everybody's kind of doing it backwards.
Oh, so much so. I think you've just hit the nail on so many different heads. But there is this thing at the moment, I term it that wishful thinking. Everyone's got all of their hooks on this law of attraction, which is one of the 22 laws of the universe. And it's like, I want a Mercedes in my drive. Well, there's none of the doing in this 3D plane that we belong in. And people seem to be wanting to ascend to these 5D frequencies when we live in this material plane. It's like we need to bring these into our physical reality. So I absolutely love it. We've always been aligned on this, and I
Yes.
just, yeah, so
Yes.
amazing.
If you're hiding away from the action, if you're trying to bypass that, if you think it's just a bit of this and wishful thinking, again, then you are missing a component. You are.
Yeah.
And this is why I call this like multidimensional business, because you do work in the quantum, and the energy, of course, what you embody is what you attract. But so it's like 5D energy, 4D, whatever, 3D is a part of it. You
Yeah.
can't, it is a 3D strat, and I love business strategy. Like I freaking love it. And so if you're not prepared to be able to learn and know and embody the action part of us, as physical beings, then to build momentum and to jump into, higher timelines of abundance and freedom, you're going to keep perpetuating the same timelines over and over and over, because really, if you're too afraid to take action, then there's something in there, and you've just done all of this shadow work. There's something in you saying that there's a wound that is keeping you from being able to transcend into this next layer. And if you can't lean into that, then here we go on the hamster wheel again.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think so many people are afraid to lean into that wounding because they think it's going to be this Pandora's box that once they open the lid, it's all going to come spewing out and they're not going to be able to cope with it. But with the right people, the right practitioners, the right guidance, whatever it is, you open the lid, you take something out, you have a look at it, you heal it. You're in control of the lid. And we can heal all of the things that trigger and activate us,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
then allow us to jump that timeline so much faster.
Oh my goodness. Like I feel like in the kind of personal development, spiritual, whatever industry, there are kind of real, like, as I've witnessed people go on the entrepreneurial journey, and ultimately what it is just your own spiritual evolution, because your business will require you to lean in. It will pull out all the wounds and the triggers and the whatever. That's just what happens. And so there are two types of people I've witnessed. The people who really do big things and do them very quickly are the people that are willing to lean the F in. And I should ask if we're allowed to
Oh
cut.
no, go for it. I'm a spiritual sailor.
Yeah, yeah. Or the people that get a little shaky and they're like, oh no, sorry, I thought this was a whole spiritual woo-woo. We're gonna meditate and it's all gonna happen. And then they do the bypassing thing,
Yeah.
where it gets a little bit scary. They feel the fear, and then they kind of step out and they lean out. And so that's the difference between, and I call this aligned bravery. And I said this, funnily enough, we're talking about this, of course it's aligned, but I said this on my Instagram last week, that if you truly, like, if you're here, you want to ascend, you feel a purpose, you feel the thing burning in you, you want to make a lot of money, which, by the way, there's no shame around that. Like, claim it. Why don't you admit it already? You want to have all these adventures. It is required to have also aligned bravery. You have to have that in order to be able to see, to feel, to release. It requires bravery. And so if people aren't going to tell you that, and it's going to be all quantum meditation, this, whatever, I'm sorry, again, this is going to lead you down this path of perpetuating the same things, because you're going to allow the same protection mechanisms to pop up and to pull you back into safety.
Yes, absolutely. So speak a little bit more about that term of aligned bravery. I think it's amazing and I really get it. But for those who don't, explain what you mean by aligned bravery.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm glad you asked me this question, because I think oftentimes people can miss, especially spiritual people. And I love you guys. Like, I'm spiritual as all hell. Like, if you come into my container, you'll be like, whoa, there's a different level of Sarah I didn't even know was there. Like, I like, my spiritual humans are my favorite people. However, I have noticed, there's just a lot of misinformation out there around what it means to be like spiritual and to evolve. And so what aligned bravery is, and the reason I'm so glad you asked this question, is because I think spiritual humans are so tapped into their feelings and their emotions, and it's amazing that we get to use it as a compass. However, people can misinterpret fear for something, and then they'll say it's misaligned. or this isn't aligned for me because I'm feeling this anxiety and this is just too scary. And so what happens is they feel the fear, the anxiety because of the stories or whatever, the wounds. And then because they've been taught to follow alignment and all the things that feel good, they lean back out, therefore perpetuating the same things because they just want to be comfortable and safe and cozy and warm.
Mm.
So aligned bravery is the ability to anchor into what I call this place of divine knowing. Like, this is the freaking thing you need to do. You are scared, shaking in your freaking boots, and you lean in and you do it anyway.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's really beautiful because although I mean, I speak about it just in different terms. For me, it's that discernment. When
Yeah.
you know deeply your feelings, you do know when it's fear-based or when it's aligned bravery, as you term it, because there's this thing of when we stay in that comfort zone, the reason it's comfortable is actually it's often not. It's uncomfortable as hell. It's the known zone. It's all we know. And
Mm,
aligned bravery, discernment, forward motion, all of that can only happen when we step into uncertainty.
yeah.
And that's how we have to, because we can't, well, we can stay in the known zone forever, but we certainly don't grow and evolve and do any of that stuff. Now, I have heard you mention about that uncertainty. Speak into that and how you use that within your quantum business academy and coaching
Oh,
and
you're
stuff.
asking all the juicy questions, Amanda. I love this. You're like so tuned in because I'm like, oh, we need to talk about that. And then you ask the question. So well done. Okay, now here's the thing. Now I'm going to bring this back to the quantum because I think this is going to really hopefully help some of you guys and really land where it needs to. Now, if we understand what the quantum actually is, and if we understand how to navigate that through our mind, here's what I want for, like, if you guys can take one thing out of this, it would be to know, understand, and embody the fact that if you can see a timeline through your imagination, it's not your mind making it up. It's a timeline that is done. And so it is okay for me now. I think one of my biggest superpowers is my ability to go in the unknown and be like, fuck it. I don't, I'm happy. I know this is where I'm going. And I've taken great risks because of this thing that I call divine knowing. And it is my imagination seeing my timeline so clearly that I have such a strong divine knowing that that is what is there. And so with that knowing, it is that thing, my ego, it's like the tightrope my ego can grab onto when I'm in this abyss of the unknown, because I know on the other side of that is that timeline, that is the quantum, that the quantum has shown me. And every time I take a risk and I'm about to leap over this abyss of uncertainty, I cling on to divine knowing. I know the timeline's there because I can see it in detail. And Dolores Cannon is somebody I've followed for a long time. You probably know her.
Love her.
Yeah, she's amazing. For those of you who don't know her, she is no longer physically with us, but she was a hypnotherapist and she took her patients so deep that she was basically accessing universal consciousness. And one of her direct quotes, and this is from her, is that if you can see a timeline in detail, like a higher realm timeline in detail, any timeline for that matter, but we want to play with the higher realm. If you can see it in detail in your imagination, it is law, it must happen. And so if you understand that and understand the way of the quantum, so if you fixate on the timeline that is done, the higher realm timeline of abundance and freedom, and your soul is asking you to take a risk and move you forward in this direction, and if you can do that with the divine knowing of what's there, it's so much easier to transcend. But if you try to step into aligned bravery from a place of having no freaking idea, like what's on the other side or where the abyss ends, where it starts and ends, that's hard. Like we get that. It's hard. So if you understand like who you are as an energetic creator, how the quantum works, how you use your imagination as a navigation tool for the quantum, it's so much easier to put yourself in places of uncertainty because you know where you're going to be spat out at the other end, shall we say.
Yeah. Now I've got an interesting maybe question here.
Yeah.
So yes, there's the clinging on to knowing the unknown, knowing the end result, all of that stuff. And a lot of people in the spiritual realm talk about, death to the ego and all of that kind of thing. Now, we know the ego doesn't disappear, that, fear will be there because we're going into the unknown. So even when we have certainty about diving into the unknown, we have this little piece of us who's going, oh, are you going to just jump to your death? Explain how you manage that, because obviously in law of attraction stuff, people assume that it means if you ever have a negative thought, if you ever experience fear, any of that stuff, it's going to delay and prolong your ability to manifest it. So speak to that for us, if you don't mind, my love.
I love this. Yeah. Okay. So firstly, I think there's so much we need to debunk here. I think there's so much because of these concepts, these beautiful concepts that I don't want to poo-poo that are out there. I think people misinterpret them, and that we need to embrace every aspect of this experience. Like we're on this 3D plane. Our soul asked to experience contrast. And so if we're guilting or shaming or whatever ourselves for whatever lesson we learned through contrast, this is only kicking up more resistance and keeping your manifestations at arm's length. So same goes with the ego. Like if we're pushing our ego away, we're saying it needs to die and do all these things where it's like, we need to take it on the journey. It's our navigation tool. Like, why are you poo-pooing it and saying it can't be a part of like this existence and reality? No, like give it what it needs. Like if it needs evidence, or if it needs a list of everything you've done so it feels better and it trusts you can build that trust within yourself, give that to your ego. Take it along for the ride. Here's the thing. People will kick up so much more resistance if they don't let their ego be a part of it. Let your ego have a voice. Let it have a voice. Let it spit out all the fears. Write it down. Get it out. Let yourself witness it. Because if you don't, you will have a fragmentation of yourself digging in its freaking heels. And you'll be like this, back and forth. You can't see if you're listening. A tug of war.
Yeah.
You just visualize yourself as a tug of war. You have this part of you that wants to move forward. And then you have your ego that's saying, I am like, you're just like this child in a screaming room where nobody listens. And this will be the ego. You're not paying attention. You're not listening to me. You're not hearing my fears. And so let the ego be a part of the journey. Let yourself be afraid, but write it out, get it out. Let yourself be witnessed. Let the ego be witnessed. And if you do that, you embrace the fear, you embrace the worry, you let yourself see the stories behind it, the ego will be like, okay, you are here, you're acknowledging me, because as humans, that's what we want, right? We want to be acknowledged. We want to be seen.
Yes.
Like, you are here, you're acknowledging me. I now feel safe that I will be heard and seen and acknowledged. So I'm okay then to go with you on this journey. But too many people try to bypass that. They're like, oh, the ego needs to die. Or I thought I worked on this because why am I still afraid? And then they get back in this cycle of self-loathing and all of this crap where it's like, no, just let it speak. It has something to say. That's what these emotions are. Get it out of you. And then you won't have this like inner child digging in its heels going, no, this isn't safe. We're not going there. Instead, it'll be like, okay, yeah, I'm still a little nervous, but we can go forward now.
Yeah, we talk about that in the archetypal work I do, almost as the reparenting of the inner child self. And it's making sure that, and the ego isn't the inner child, of course, but you speak to it very similarly, because it is the bit that keeps us safe in this 3D realm. It's the bit that makes sure that we can navigate it well. And also, it is only informed by our experience. And so it is, darling, I am an adult. I can look after you. I've got this. And it's the reassurance, the same way that you would reassure your toddler.
Yeah.
When they're not well, or when they're having a tantrum, or yes, darling, let me hear you. Let me see you. Let me acknowledge you. Let me really honor you. So I love that, because I think that's part of what I try and sort of, express and tell my clients and live by, is we don't want to kill these parts. The more integrated they are, the more whole we are, the more they're in the whole of us, the easier our life actually becomes, because there's not these warring bits within us who are, 100%. I've got to die. She wants to kill me.
I know. What kind of message does that send? Like, okay, you have to think about like how the universe, which is you inversed, is interpreting that. In order for me to progress, transcend, step into higher timelines, I have to die. No, thanks. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think so. Like, I would rather live. That's what the ego, the subconscious is going to say. But if you flip it on its head and be like, right, in order for us to be, do, have more, we get to be seen and revealed and held and kept safe. Well, then every aspect of us is going to be on board. We're not back and forthing like a tug of war within internally. And we incrementally get to step into these new places of freedom, abundance, success, purpose, all of it. But unless you're prepared to like really see it, like, and really embrace it instead of thinking, shunning it, then it's not gonna be the journey you expected. I think, and I see this all the time. People are ready to jump in, do the work. I swear it can happen, and it has happened, and I've seen it happen so quick. I had this one beautiful, beautiful soul, and she's so amazing. It is so funny how riddled in doubt she was, because of, like, from the outside in, she's like a marketing executive for a really large company, a well-known one, but she wanted to get out there and put this program out there, but she had all these shaky, no, who am I to's, all of those things. And she did the freaking work. She did the freaking work, and she put herself out there and transcended so much internally, brought her ego with her, brought her doubts, leaned into the fears, held her self-esteem, all these things. And what she wanted to do in the whole year, like income wise, she did she did half of that in 3 months. So
wow.
that's what's available. That is honest. And this is available for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, she is not special. I am not special. Like, this is available to everyone. Everyone has this access to this abundance. In fact, it's tapping you on the shoulder. It is your truest essence. But we have to understand how to navigate it. We have to understand how to navigate ourselves and ask for it and lean in every time and relentlessly choose it over and over again.
Yeah. So and I know this is probably coming from the fact that I am really tired, having gone and done a whole 3 days of shadow work, getting home at 2 a.m. and all the rest of it. But hearing that relentlessly lean in, I have that, just let me sit down for a minute. Because I know that's also my genius flow, is I need to sit and receive. Yeah. And so I just want to put that out there. It isn't about constantly doing the work. It is making conscious choice of when we have activity and when we don't have activity, balancing the rest and the striving, that masculine and feminine principle within us. Yeah. So just for anyone else who noticed that one, because sometimes I hear these words and I'm like, oh, get me off the path. Do I really need to walk this still?
Yeah, no. Oh my gosh. I love this, because it's actually the opposite. When you do, and you follow your soul, like when you have the spaciousness, the energy, the time, you lean in. When your body's telling you to rest, you rest. And I think, again, people try to override that because we've been programmed and coded to think we just have to freaking do, and we lose our whole self and way of being. But you'll see a really funny paradigm flips when you do this, because now, like for me and for the people that do this work in the academy, I have the most expansiveness in terms of my time that's available. And I've never made this much money. So that opposite happened. So the opposite happens. So it's like, I have all the spaciousness. Now what's next? What gets to be better? What gets to be more? What's the next layer? So yeah, so it's discernment. Like what you said earlier, it's your discernment. You listen to your body. You don't guilt yourself for the rest days, because when you do that, you're actually contradicting the idea that you are an energetic creator. You think you have to justify everything with action and work and whatever, and you don't. You really don't.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I think it's absolutely amazing. And I think it is sometimes when people talk about, even in spirituality, it's about doing the work. Well, yeah, it is about doing the work, but that also balances in times of downtime and listening to your body and rest. And I think that's the balance, although I don't like the word balance, because we're actually never in balance unless we're sitting down or standing still. And we're always in movement, but that harmony, the coherence.
Yes.
Of, I always think of the orchestra where, the instruments all need to be in tune, and some need to shut up sometimes so the others can be heard. And the spaces in between the notes are as important as the notes themselves. Otherwise, we've just got noise. And
That's so
so
beautiful. I love
that's
that.
the way I often think about my energetic harmony and my inner children. You know, if I've got my inner children screaming because they're not being listened to, or my ego screaming, or other parts of me scream, that's not going to be a pretty tune.
No.
It's not going to be very harmonious, and no one's going to want to listen to that shit. So,
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is the thing. And we're circling back to
yeah,
the very beginning of the conversation. You know, I would actually, and it is a rewiring of the mind. It really is. Like when you start to repattern yourself, if I feel like I'm in this must do, I must send this last, I actually hardwire myself to shut my laptop and step away. Like it is like, that honestly, that takes so much discipline. It's
I
not,
can imagine, but
it's so
I've been in the same, so I'm resonating with this so much. There is
yeah.
that, hang on, catch the behavior. What do
Yes.
I need to do now? So I
Yes.
love that you say that. Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard. But I just know anyway, like when you're not in the right energy, when you're not leveraging your energy in the right way, you never get the outcome you would want anyway. So it is being able to repattern, because I worked in corporate and you have as well,
Mm.
I worked in corporate for almost 10 years where it's like extreme doingness, and that's what equals all of this result. And it's like I had to really work hard mentally to rewire that whole paradigm, to really truly know. And again, we're going to circle it back to understanding who we are as energetic creators, and that the quantum is there. My only job is to peel back the layers that are holding me back from meeting that version of Sarah that's rocking it in the
Yeah.
millions or whatever. That's
Yeah.
my only job. And then what happens is you get these droplets of inspiration, and then that's where you jump on that wave and take the action.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that you admit that it's really hard to do, because I think sometimes people are also in that thing of, I don't know if it's not quite spiritual bypassing, but almost that I'm your guru type stuff of, well, it's super easy. We've just got to do this. And if you pay me enough money, then I can get you to that point. But it's not. The reason they call it the work is it is looking at, what do I need to do? What is
Yeah.
going to be in my highest good right now? If I send that email and it's not energetically aligned, that's actually going to do me more damage than good anyway. So let me wait. 24 hours is not a big deal,
Yeah.
realistically, even though some people think it is.
Yeah.
And I use a simple example. Like this morning, I booked into Pilates at 6 a.m. because I love, feeling physically strong and doing, but I
Yes.
felt into my body last night and I'm going, I'm going to do more harm than good.
Good
I
job.
actually need to wait until after next week
Yeah.
to get back to Pilates, because I'm heading away on the weekend, just up to, country timeshare for a little bit. And the reason was, in the past, I would have forced myself to do that class. And
Yeah.
there was still part of me going, no, but it'll make you feel better, and all of this stuff. So I had to listen to both parts and go, okay, who's actually conditioning and who is having my highest and best good in,
Yeah.
in mind. And it was, you know what, you need more time in bed. So just can it.
I love it.
And I think they're the hard decisions that people, when we're talking self-love, that hard stuff is the self-love.
Yeah.
Making that hard choice to be more self-loving to ourselves and discerning actually what is not in that loving space. It's not massages and retreats as much as they're nice.
Yeah. Isn't that a bizarre kind of paradigm we're in? And then it's like, and then the next step of that is choosing to be in bed and stay in bed and not feeling guilty. Do you know
Oh,
what I mean?
yes. I've got to that point.
Yeah,
I'm cool
good.
with the rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am absolutely cool with my rest. So what led you to the Quantum Business Academy? Like
Oh,
how?
cool.
What
Okay.
what
This will
happened?
lead into a great story,
Tell
I
us your
think.
story.
Yeah. So, and then for those of you, you probably have heard this, Amanda, this story over and over again, but I think it's an important story to tell because it does help paint a picture for what it means to transcend fear, to be in the freaking place of uncertainty, and then to lean the fuck in. So everything for me has always been a tap on the shoulder. You guys, everyone gets them, but I just am keenly aware with regards to what they are. And a lot of the time they make no sense whatsoever. And that's the hard thing, because this is what I go on lots of tangents here, but I just want to say, when we hear the nudge or feel the nudge or whatever sense, whatever your extrasensory thing is, what tends to happen is people get themselves caught in what I call the evidence distortion. They'll look at their physical evidence for reasons why they shouldn't do it. And this is keeping this in, because this is a really bad thing to do, because your physical reality is just a manifestation of all of your programming up until this point. So if you feel a nudge and your ego is looking around at the evidence going, "Ooh, but I don't know if we have enough money," or, "But I'm not sure this," and no, the evidence isn't there. So sorry, we're not going to move forward. You will keep perpetuating the same reality over and over and over again. So you got to understand yourself as an energetic quantum creator. If you're getting a nudge and you can see your timeline in detail, then you can lean in and choose. And so I will get back to answering your question around how I got started in this. I got the tap on the shoulder. I would say, okay, so let's go back to 2019, November. This is when the craziness all was starting with the big C. And we just moved from Williamstown to the Macedon Ranges. And so I was working partially as an in-person kinesiologist practitioner, and then partially online. My husband is a musician and a teacher, and I joke and say, like, those are the two jobs you do when you don't want to make any money. He was doing really well as a musician back then. And so all of a sudden COVID hits, and anyone who does in-person work, music, practitioners, whatever, their whole world was, the rug was freaking ripped out from under people in a crazy way, in a really crazy way. I stayed in my center because I don't plug into the evidence distortion. I think that is another superpower muscle that if any of you can build, you create your world within a world. And if you plug into everything that's external, you will be shit whipped around and you'll lose your sovereignty. So I was able to kind of keep myself in my center, and I got a tap on the shoulder to invest in a coach in a point in time where we just bought a house. I couldn't believe I got approved for a loan, firstly, Jeff and I, because I was working for myself. I'd only been, I don't know, a few years in business, whatever. So the fact that we got approved was like, wow, okay, great. So we had what's called a bridging loan, meaning our Williamstown house is connected to our Macedon house. And if we default on one, guess what? We lose them both.
Yeah.
So COVID hits, my in-person clients, poof, gone. Jeff's gigs, which was probably 80% of his income, poof, gone. And so I was tapped on the shoulder by my soul to be like, there's a mentor, and I'm putting you in front of her. I want you to work with her. And I'm like, she was $33,000.
Wow.
You can imagine it was several months of marriage counseling later, which is fair enough. Which is totally fair enough. So suffice to say, I was put in great uncertainty and I had a lot on the line. So the stuff I talk about is the stuff I have embodied, and I have been on this hero's journey myself. So this is how I know this works. And when I can get my clients to this place of being in their own aligned bravery and choosing their path in the most powerful, potent way, I see them, boom, doing the crazy 40K months, all of the things. So anyway, I leaned in and I it's like the universe always rewards aligned bravery. Always. I got tapped on the shoulder, launched the business academy. It ended up being, I felt like the whole thing was a fluke. I didn't know like what I know about strategy and marketing and whatever. This is how I know a massive percentage of success is energy, because I was just in my energy. I think I put a post or two on Facebook. There was no launch strategy or anything. I ended up booking out my first intake of the academy, which was a 6-figure launch, if you even want to call it a launch. And then I did the same thing 6 months later. So I launched my business, and all of a sudden I'm having this multiple 6-figure year. And it was because I aligned, I leaned in, the bravery was there. It was in great uncertainty, but my soul was guiding me to do the freaking thing anyway. And I did it. And turns out it works. Turns out it all works. And this was a time, mind you, again, this is how, guys, you were just so in your own, you can create whatever you want, no matter what's happening outside of you. People are losing their jobs. Everyone's freaking out. Like, if you were to look at it and read in or buy into all the storylines and the narratives, I would have been buying into the narrative that nobody wants to spend money. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to, but I didn't. I stayed in my sovereignty. I chose the timeline that was there, and I chose every single action based on what that timeline needed me to do and be. And then boom, all of a sudden I was living in it.
Awesome.
So that's how the Academy started. And of course it's evolved, and just been magic, you know, and it obviously hard work and tears and all of the things along the way, but none of it we shun or poo poo, because this is how we get coded. Like I was scared as shit, you know, like, and my poor husband, like what he's probably going, oh, Sarah, like, you know, and like, what do you mean? And, you know, it was a lot of freaking work, a lot of work along the way. But I promise you, the universe always rewards aligned bravery in the most potent and powerful ways. It changes your life. It changes your life. So,
So, having seen you,
yeah.
I guess, one, risk a lot. And then I know you mentioned the marriage counseling and all the rest. What changes have you seen this facilitate in your husband or in your relationship with him?
He trusts me now. Yeah. Yeah. He's like, well, she fucking did it, you know? Okay, I trust her. There's no question now. Like if I want to spend whatever on a launch or whatever, oftentimes it's, you know, could be multiple 5 figures on, he trusts me and I trust myself. And so, but that took work, and it was fair enough for him to need that support, you know, fair enough. Like our marriage counselor was really cool, because she was like, well, you know, if you invest in a master's degree, that's like $80,000. And I was like, yeah, it is. Yes. Thank you. But they don't often teach you how to make it back.
Yeah.
That's the biggest gap. You know, how many of people listening or whatever have gone through university and are like, now what? You know, $100,000 and now what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm that
Exactly.
person. Yeah. I
Yeah.
learned what at university exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Not a
what?
lot.
Just
Yeah.
a lot of student debt. So yeah, so it was just, it's the trust, it's the trust muscle. And then it built trust in myself, because trust me, I had those nights. And, you know, one of the things that was really cool is when I was in that period of the unknown, where I was in the counseling with my husband, I was like, I know I freaking need to do this. And I, like, part of me is like, I'm going to do it regardless, you know, but I wanted him on board, of course. But I remember then fast forwarding, I don't know, 7 months in, and being actually in my mentor's house and going to that past version of Sarah and saying to her, don't worry, you've done it. You've done it. I'm here at her house and you've done it. And so I think having these conversations, because again, if we understand the quantum and timelines, what we need to like truly get, and this is why inner child work is so potent, is because every timeline is simultaneously coexisting right now. So this is why inner child work is so powerful, because when you release something from the inner child, boom, 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 the effect happens right now. And so I always go to the past versions of Sarah and go and, you know, and go to her and be like, you did it. Don't worry. We're going to do this. I'm here right now. And then I also go to the future version of Sarah and get like directives from her. What do I do with this? What do I do with this part? Whatever. And that really helps as like a little tool.
No, that's amazing. I love that. And, you know, I think this is so important and powerful, that speaks to your relationship as well, because often those sorts of things, you know, could be those straws that could break the camel's back or whatever it is. So I think it's beautiful that you were able to navigate it in that way. And again, I think having that clear vision of, where are we going? Not just where am I going? It's where are we going, and what is this going to bring in for us, and how is this going to, you know, support us, is really, really important. And I, you know, speaks to the testament of, you know, what you've built outside of just the business as well.
Yeah.
And in that, talk to us about, you know, abundance. I have my ideas on abundance. I sometimes think that people potentially have limited ideas on it. So I'd love you to speak to the idea of abundance.
Yay. Oh God, this is my favorite topic. Okay. So I like to think of abundance. So when we talk about money, we can talk about money. Money is like the cousin of abundance. And, you know, so like, I don't want any of you, again, there's so many just false, I call it a false light template. When something is spoken or is, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll come back to it. Hopefully it's like, when you talk about something in a way, but it's very manipulative where the whole coding around money, it's false light template because we've been
Yes.
coded to be like, I'm going to stay away from money. I can't be a good person and admit that I want money and blah, blah, blah. It's a false light template where really the light wants you to have money because then you can make a greater impact. Money is an amplification tool. But when you talk about abundance, I always say abundance is the same frequency as the resonance of your higher self. Because for me, abundance is knowing that you have it all, you already are it all, you are all encompassing. And that is the same knowing as your higher self. And
Yeah.
so if you're truly embodied in abundance and you know that you have it all, you are it all, you're all encompassing, and with all the parts and the darkness and whatever, all of it is part of that, then you're not hungry for clients. Then you're not worried about transcending the end. This is where you become magnetic. And then as a result, the cousin, which is money, wants to come hang out. And it's a really powerful place to be in because I can sit here and be like, well, like if a client comes to me and I know I can't help them or they're misaligned or whatever reason, I say no. That's
Mm.
abundance. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm not like, ooh, but they're going to give me an extra, their whatever 10K. Or so I will just have them, well, yep, come on. I'm not going to put people in a position where I'm convincing them you need to do this. You have till the end of the day. We don't do any of that in business.
No.
If you're truly embodied in abundance, you are magnetic. You don't have to chase, you attract because you have this knowing. I always use the analogy of I am a mental billionaire. What does that feel like? It's like you want for nothing.
Yeah.
That's abundance to me. I had a client who was like, Sarah, I don't know what's happening. She has like a spa. She has a spa and they like in-person clinic kind of thing. And she's like, I don't know what's happening, Sarah. Now that we're doing all this work, I'm booked out. I need to find other practitioners. And like, I don't like what's happening here. I want for nothing. And I stopped her and I said, that's why. When
Yeah.
you want for nothing, you become magnetic to everything.
Yeah.
That is abundance. That is
Mm.
abundance. So the majority of humanity is trapped in lack, trapped in the programming of noticing all these things they don't have, or the woe is me, or the this or that. It's hard to be the embodiment of I am the mental billionaire and I have it all right now when you're constantly seeking out why you shouldn't be happy or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's absolutely amazing. And it is interesting. I've often, done my beach walks in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, like I've got all the things that I
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
Like this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a beautiful place to be. And, yeah, of course, I would love more money, but again, it's coming because I've already got that feeling of, oh yeah, like I've got what I need. I've got everything that,
One of the first things, and this is what again a past version of Sarah did that I'm
yeah,
grateful for, but one of the first things I think people need to do. So I always say that the energetic world works almost to the opposite of the physical world. And so like in the physical world, if you wanted to move something, and again, I'm using an example, and if
yeah,
you're just listening, like I'm holding my phone in my right hand, but if you want to move something, you will use your left hand to push an object away from you. And therefore you physically move that object further from you. The energetic world does not work like that. So in the energetic world, if we resist something, like for example, we look at all these things in our reality, we want to push resistance against it, it's not going to push it away from us. And so if we want to tap into abundance, we need to first surrender to everything that is and almost embrace it. Because if you do that, those things they will pass through your timeline, your reality so
yeah,
much quicker than if you were to resist it. So what I started doing when I wasn't liking things is I just was like, fuck it. I'm going to surrender to it all. I'm surrendering to the messy house, to the little things, to the messy car or whatever, surrendering to it all and embracing it. And you'll find all of a sudden, all of these dynamics start to shift because you're not kicking so much resistance
yeah,
up in your own physical reality. And so that's the first step to really being able to step into a place of abundance. Stop resisting what is. And then you have the space to actually start embracing everything that you already are.
yeah. I love that. I love that because it does put it so simply. And I think that's part of the reason that I resonate so much with you is that we can distill these big quantum ideas down into simple language so that people can digest it so much
Yeah.
easier, which I think is super important. So What is your version of spirituality? Because I know you've sort of talked about the quantum and the access to the higher self and all of that. Talk to me about what your understanding and experience of spirituality is and your idea of it.
I think this is such a good question. I think my idea of spirituality is a combination of being in my own sovereign knowing. That is the biggest thing, because religion, and I'm nothing against religion at all. It does a lot of good, obviously, but religion will teach you to follow other people's rules and paradigms and this and that. Where spirituality, you freaking create your own through your knowing. And that, for me, is the true definition. The deeper you're anchored into your knowing of self and what you're capable of and what's available for you, and you can lean into it despite all the chaos of everything that's happening around you, the deeper you anchor into your own spirituality. And so you said discernment earlier, and I think that that is one of the most powerful tools you have as a spiritual being. I use a term called quantum discernment, and it's like you take because ultimately in this universe, there are no truths.
Yeah.
There's no ultimate truth. There are laws. There are laws of gravity. There are the laws of creation. But when people say, but this is the truth, I saw this happen or whatever, it's their version of perception.
Yeah.
So there are no real truths. And so for me, spirituality is taking a piece of information, pulling it into my energetic sphere and asking myself, does this knowledge or quote unquote truth expand my cells? Or does it contract me and make me feel fear and worry? And if it expands my cells, then I invite that in as my own truth. I create my truths. I don't invite anyone else's truth in. And this is what got me, and this is what happened in COVID. I wasn't inviting the truth of COVID into my reality. I was my own sovereign spiritual being, and I created my own timeline because of that. But I think when people lose themselves as spiritual people, it's because they're buying into other people's truths or realities or possibilities, limitations, and then it's all become theirs and they freaking forget who they are and they lose themselves.
Yeah. No,
So
I love that.
yes, quantum discernment is my deepest aspect of tapping into my spirituality.
Oh, I love that. I think it's so beautifully put. And I love asking people that question because everybody has their own idea of spirituality, and yet it's exactly the same.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, exactly. But that's what that's the point, isn't it? It's their quantum truth.
Yeah.
It's their quantum discernment. Like to be able to quantumly discern things. By the way, when you do that, your cells literally expand. When you are able to quantumly discern based on information that expands you, your cellular structure in your body literally expands. And when that happens, you are able to literally hold more light. And what that means for you is you have more of yourself coming into your body, which is why quantum discernment is such a powerful way to navigate your reality. So, yeah, it's funny that people have their ability or their knowing of what that is, and it's all said eloquently in different ways, but it comes back to the same thing.
Yeah. And it's the same as that, we are all the collective conscience and yet we're all unique expressions of it. It's just that manifest in reality, which I absolutely love. Now, I could speak to you absolutely all day about this stuff because this is our jam. Yeah. But we are coming to the end of time now. So I'm going to ask you, well, one last question and then I'll, get you to tell everybody where they can find you. But what does being a divine, messy human mean to you?
Yay! I love it. I think if we were kind of to rewind on bits of our conversation today, it's like just full acceptance. Stop thinking a part of you is bad or something that happened and you tripped over and fell and now you create a story around it and you're doomed or whatever. It's embracing all of the divine, all of the messy, all of the human, and being like, let's all do this together. You know what I mean? So I love that, Amanda. And I love that you wrote a book on that, because I think the more people can accept every aspect of their journey and who they are, their past, the present, what's available in the future, the more they will be able to transcend everything that's been really like keeping them like tightly wound up like a noose and step into this place of being truly liberated.
Yeah. And I think the key in that often is that messiness. Most people are so busy trying to, paper over the cracks in their facade and not let it out. Or when they do let it out, it's like, I think Brene Brown says, putting your bikini wax on Instagram or whatever. I think that's one of the examples she uses. It's like everything's on show
Yeah.
or we've got this fake facade up. Whereas when we can own the messiness
Oh yeah.
without necessarily carrying the story and the trauma in the messiness, and we can embrace that and embody that and then recognize when it rears its head, that for me is where the magic is, because the
Oh, I know.
divinity is amazing to tap into. And once you get the idea that you're a divine being, I think that never goes away. I think the messiness sometimes is the key, and I know it's made my human experience so much easier.
You've hit the nail on the head. The messiness is where you're coded. And
Yeah,
like for me and for you in the position you're in as a facilitator and me as a facilitator, there for me is nothing more powerful than someone saying to me, I've been there too.
yeah,
Those are such powerful words when you're put in a position of supporting a human. I've
yeah,
been there too. I get it. And
yeah,
here's what we get to do next. And
yeah.
that only comes from being in the messiness yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I often say, you tell me a problem, I've probably got the t-shirt in most colors, most sizes, I've got the whole range in my wardrobe. So most
Yay.
things I have an intimate experience of. And if I don't, I've had one that'll be probably pretty similar. So
100%.
we've got
Love
a
it. Love
t-shirt
it.
that'll fit you. It's
Yep.
fine.
Love it. Love it.
Oh, awesome, honey. Thank you so, so much for your time. But before you go, tell people how they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at sarah.tynan.quantumcoach. That's where I'm on most frequently. Or you can find me on my website, which is out of date, but it's still there. That's the messy part of me. It's Sarah www.sarahtynan.co. So that's where I'm at. Thank you so much for having me,
Yeah.
Amanda. You are
Yeah.
divine. You are absolutely divine.
Oh, back at you, darling. I just love seeing you spread the light into the world the way that you are. And I'm so grateful for you. So thank you so, so much.
Pleasure.